Hey everybody, we are live for yet another weekly live Q&A with everyone's favorite aquatics enthusiast and video host, my man Thomas.
Hey, how's it going?
How is it going? We're here with all of you. We're happy to have all you guys here. Thank you for joining us. I see we have a lot of our regulars. Good to have you guys here.
Absolutely.
Madeline, I'm looking at you. We also have Josh, our other aquatics enthusiast and video host. He's joining us in the chat under the little Big Al's banner when he's going to be there answering questions as well to help you guys out. But again, thank you guys for showing up. I'll kind of jump right into all my initial spiel before we get into the meat and potatoes of this.
Sounds good, Brian. Tell us about it.
Okay, so first off, hit that like button. If you guys are here, hit that like button. It's going to help us out, help out this live stream. So make sure you smash that like button. Make sure to share our channel, the stream, our videos, not just right now, but all the time. You know, like it never hurts to just share if you like our stuff, because that really does help us. The more subs we get, the bigger we get, the more awesome stuff we can bring to you guys. So
sharing is caring, after all.
Sharing is caring. That's absolutely right, Thomas. You are absolutely right in that. Did you come up with that, or I've never heard that before?
I've never heard of that before either. It's off the top of my head.
So yes, share us wherever you can, all the time. That really helps us out. I just want a quick disclaimer.
Ooh.
That this stream is for general help, answering your general questions. If you have specific questions about your pets, your fish, we'll do our best to answer them, but we do always suggest for very specific questions about your fish to email our support team, our customer care team. They're going to do everything they can. You can send them photos of your pet, more context of what's going on, and they'll be able to help you much more effectively than I think we can here. But of course, Thomas will take a swing at whatever he can.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime we're dealing with fish that could be sick with something, it's a discourse. We actually have to talk back and forth to figure out and drill down to what the issue is and how to solve it. So that's why it's important that you get in touch with our support team, because it's hard to just have the question and answer it directly.
100%.
So.
Yeah. That said, for our React series, I know a lot of you guys are wanting to know when that's coming out. I keep getting emails every day. We're filming more tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
Our next edition.
And I'm super excited for
Yeah.
that.
No, it's a lot of fun filming. So we're filming more tomorrow, and those should start coming out over the next few weeks as well. We have a new video out. For those of you who haven't seen, our new video just released yesterday afternoon. It's Thomas's top 10 habits to prevent your aquarium from becoming a chore. Top 10 good habits.
Yeah.
And a lot of good response already.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how that video alone has gotten so many comments in a short period of time, and it's good to know that it's really resonating with the aquarium community, and especially beginners. I'm seeing a lot of beginners saying that it really helped them, and even seasoned aquarists to say it's nice to have a reminder every once in a while. And I agree. Sometimes I have to remind myself.
Yeah. No.
So yeah, I'm glad everybody's digging it.
Yeah. And so I've just linked that in the chat. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, feel free to check that out after the stream. And I guess with all of that said, we're ready to get right into the Q's, and we'll give some A's.
Sounds good.
We'll all have a good time.
Awesome.
Okay, so first question. Ooh. Hello, my Q is 150-gallon tank, only flower horn, and my nitrate is always high, more than 100 ppm. Did a water change every other day, 50%, goes down to 60 ppm. Next day, back up to 80 to 100 ppm, and I've got 2 canister filters.
Okay. That's a lot of water for a single flower horn, so I'm surprised you're getting nitrates up that high. Now here is a question I have. Have you ever tested your tap water for ammonia or nitrate or even nitrite? Sometimes you'll get ammonia in your tap water, and if you have that, you could do a water change, a large volume, and you may remove nitrates. But if you're putting ammonia back in, that's just in your tap water, that's going to turn into nitrates. So it'll be a temporary drop in nitrates and immediately come back up. The other thing it could potentially be, I don't know if you've got a lot of substrate in the aquarium or how often you clean the canisters, but there could be a buildup of organics or mulm in the substrate itself or in the canister. So cleaning those out and making sure that they're spick and span as well may help to reduce nitrates. And lastly, just the amount of food you're feeding, and if any food is making it outside of the flower horn's mouth and down to the bottom where it won't necessarily get it, and then that's decomposing, that's going to lead to more nitrates as well. But for nitrates to drop and then come back up very quickly, it's usually because there is a source of nitrate or ammonia coming into the system. Sometimes it's tap water, sometimes it's how we feed, sometimes it's just mulm that's built up in the aquarium that needs to be removed in order to help start bringing that nitrate down. So I would start looking there. And if you feed very, very heavily, that can all on its own cause that kind of an issue. So that's where I'd start. Look into those things, and you should hopefully get on track to figure out where these nitrates are coming from so quickly.
Cool. Next up, from Madeline, our weekly supporter here.
Hey!
She says, I have a long question.
Okay.
Thank you for the warning. In my 142-gallon tank, I now have 10 cardinal tetras, 6 rasboras, 6 platies plus fry, 7 corridoras plus 1 fry, 1 dwarf gourami, and 4 yo-yo loaches. Can I have discus or angelfish in the tank? And if so, how many do you recommend, and do you recommend angelfish or discus?
I think you'd actually be okay to add some more fish to that tank. You don't have a crazy bioload for the 140 some odd gallons that you've got. My only concern would be the neons getting munched on. But if you are starting with baby angels or baby discus, or young anyway, so they're not adults, they shouldn't hurt the neons at all whatsoever, or any small tetras. The issue is usually when you get like adult fish, throw them in there, then they see those fish as prey items and just murder them all, which sucks. I think whether or not you want to try angels or discus is going to come down to personal preference and how heavily planted the aquarium might be, or if you have a lot of ornaments or whatever in there. I find in general angelfish are quite a bit easier than discus. I haven't really kept discus personally, but anecdotally and the general concept of discus care I am familiar with. So in general, I think angels are probably going to be an easier bet, unless you go with something like Ultim angels, which can be harder. I think it's the Ultims that are harder. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, I think you'd be set to go with anywhere from 3 to 6. And you could probably start off with babies or subadults and be generally just fine with it.
Excellent. Next up is, this one's sort of a there's not much context here. We don't know what their setup is like, but they say, is a RODI unit needed?
RODI is only truly needed if you need to make your tap water or whatever water source you're using devoid of everything, essentially. So what an RODI unit's going to do is it's going to pull out TDS to bring it essentially down to 0 TDS, which TDS just stands for total dissolved solids, which are things like heavy metals and chlorine and chloramine, anything in the water that's not water, essentially. The thing is, you don't ever really use RODI water just to do water changes or to start an aquarium, because it is devoid of all mineral content, and fish do need some mineral content in the water. So you'd usually use something like RO Right or Equilibrium, I believe is Seachem's version, to add mineral content back to the water. So it's best used like RDI in freshwater applications where you're trying to make a soft water tank and your tap water is very hard, which can make it difficult, obviously, to make it soft. So starting with RDI and only adding back the elements you want to it, that's one way to do it. You also might want to use it in an instance where you have a lot of copper in your water, let's say, and you need to get rid of it because you want to keep invertebrates, and invertebrates are very sensitive to copper. So in that instance, I might use RDI and then remineralize it. The other application is if you're going saltwater. If you're going saltwater, I almost always use RODI, and then when you use your salt mix, that's going to add all the necessary elements and minerals, etc., back into the water because it's already in that salt mix. So starting with RODI, mixing the salt, you have the perfect blend right there. So you don't have to add anything extra. The salt's already got it. The reason I don't ever want to use tap water in marine tanks is because tap water often, even in fish-only tanks, just ends up being crazy algal problems, and heavy metals specifically mess with the invertebrates quite badly. So even snails and shrimp and stuff. So I always recommend RODI and then salt, good salt mix.
Cool. Next up is a Cascade 700 up to 65 gallon. Way too much for a 20 long.
Depends what you're doing with the tank.
Oh, here he says here, I have 2 Bolivian rams,
Okay.
4 endlers, 3 autos, and 8 pygmies. I had the 500, but it was constantly getting clogged. Almost lost my babies to low oxygen.
Yikes. Yeah. You can bump up to the 700. It shouldn't be too much. The flow is the only potential issue. So the amount of water that it's pushing and how it affects the flow in the aquarium and whether or not the fish are comfortable with that amount of water movement. There's lots of ways to kind of break the water flow. Like you could turn the spray bar for the Cascade 700 backwards against the glass. I'm pretty sure the Cascades are canisters. So just turn it towards the back glass as opposed to out into the tank, and that'll really diffuse the flow going into the rest of the aquarium. So you'll have at least moderate or lower flow on one end of the tank, so you're not just ripping water through the whole tank. But if the fish are comfy with the amount of water coming out of that spray bar with it going full force into the tank, that's also okay. You can also just take the spray bar off and just have it as a large exposed outlet blowing water, which will also reduce the amount of force the water comes out of the filter with, because the spray bar having those smaller nozzles creates smaller, more fine jets under pressure, and they push water harder. So yeah, you can always pop that off, and that's another way you can help try to mitigate the amount of flow if it ends up being too much for the fish. But yeah, I think you should be okay as long as you have a way to mitigate that flow, provided the fish find that it's too much.
Excellent. Okay, who else is going to watch in class and watching while at work? Don't tell my boss. I love it. It's hilarious. Thanks for joining us.
I love those comments.
Yeah,
people are so committed.
Yes, I dig it. I clean my tank glass every day, as you said in our latest video.
Nice.
But I noticed a brownish stain on glass after years. I scrubbed it harder, but ended up with scratches. Any recommendations?
A brownish stain. Anytime I have anything that's really stuck on the glass, I'll take a flat razor blade to it. So just like your little rectangular flat razor blades, and because with a long scraping edge that's even against glass, and you're pushing, even with a lot of force, you're pushing across, you're unlikely to scratch the glass because it's a long flat surface, like the edge that's actually touching the glass. It's not like taking a sharp corner and dragging it across the glass, or something like a Brillo pad and then just like marring up the glass with that. So I would try that. Just a flat razor blade and have at her.
Cool deal. Where should I put my plants once they're trimmed?
You mean the trimmings? So depending on the plant, a lot of plants will grow from trimmings, especially stem plants. Stem plants will grow from trimmings. Anubias, as long as you're taking a part of the rhizome, even if it's a very small part, and not just a leaf. Same thing with Java fern, Java moss you can pull off in clumps. But anyways, you can either have a container of some aquarium water set aside near a window or something, and you can drop them in that until they root, and then maybe trade them with other hobbyists in the area, or just hang on to them for other tank setups, or replant them in your own tank, or whatever it is you want to do. But that's usually what I would do with them. It's just kind of keep a stash of clippings that I can then barter with for other plants that I might like that somebody else in the hobby has. Some aquarium stores will actually take plants and other aquarium inhabitants that you have extra of as credit for other things or food or whatever. So you could also try that depending on what your aquarium store is like, and how much plant trimmings you have and how well you've got them all situated.
I have a betta, and I turned the filter off. He has trouble finding food if the filter's on. And I forgot to turn it on again. I thought everything would be fine because it was a sponge filter, but when I checked my levels the next day before a water change, ammonia was at 0.50 ppm, and my nitrates was 5 ppm. I don't have any plants. Did I stall the cycle or something?
I'm surprised that it would have happened that quickly, but it is possible. Like the way biological media works, and a sponge filter is a form of biological media at the end of the day, as well as mechanical. So the whole idea is water movement past the biomedia brings nutrients and oxygen, which is important, to the anaerobic bacteria that inhabit that biological media. And the anaerobic bacteria, aerobic bacteria, I'm losing my mind here. Aerobic bacteria, which is oxygen-loving bacteria, is the bacteria that breaks down ammonia into nitrate. And anaerobic is what breaks nitrate into nitrogen gas, which leaves the system. So your aerobic bacteria that is in your sponge filter would have essentially not been able to do anything because of the lack of flow. So without that water movement, without those bubbles rising up the center tube and drawing water behind them through the sponge, your bacteria had zero access, realistically, to oxygen and nutrients in the water. So if that's the case, depending on if there was any food left over that hit the bottom that your betta didn't get to, or there's just a buildup of mulm in the gravel or whatever it is, especially without any live plants, yeah, your oxygen level could drop and the bacteria is not going to do its job and you could end up with ammonia. It's possible. Like I said, I'm surprised that happened that quick, but if all flow is gone like that and your biomedia starts suffocating, it's possible.
Okie dokie, I'm planning on getting a 100-gallon densely planted tank, and I'm trying to get some ideas on livestock. I was thinking of some archer fish. Any thoughts?
I would avoid archers because they're brackish and plants don't like salt. So that's probably a bad mix. That said, there's tons of fish. It's all subjective. But for planted tanks, like we mentioned earlier, I think angelfish look stellar in planted tanks. If you want to stick with smaller schooling fish, you could do lots of different species of tetras. I'm really a big fan of black neon tetras. Rummy nose tetras are really nice. There's all kinds. You could do lots of different types of rasboras. There's tons of different rasboras out there. You could do instead, if you like the archer kind of shape, I think something that could be a similar shape fish would be rainbows, like Bosemani rainbows or the Iriangea red rainbows. I think they're from Iriangea. I don't remember. But yeah, there's tons of different rainbows and lots of different colors, and they have that general like arrowhead kind of shape at the front and wider at the back, and tons of color and lots of fun. And they'd love a planted tank, especially that size. They'll just zip around. They'll have a good time.
Cool. I'm still cycling my 15-gallon tank. I thought it was 20, but it's 17, including a built-in sump. There's a large diatom bloom. What snails or shrimp, reef safe, eat diatoms?
So anytime, like, okay, so when you're cycling a tank, this is usually what happens. So usually you'll start off with no algae, everything will look pristine. Then after, a week, maybe a week and a half, you'll start to get that brown, rusty diatom algae. About a week or so after that, that'll start to disappear and you're going to start to get green algae. Once you have green algae in the tank, I would test the water and see if you're starting to get a presence of nitrates. Because usually, once you hit the green algae stage, the diatoms start to fade away kind of on their own. And that's when it's really safe to start adding a cleanup crew. Just double check that your cycle's actually ended once you're starting to get that green algae. Then you can throw a cleanup crew in there. Diatom algae doesn't usually hang around during the cycle. Once your cycle's finished and the green algae takes over, it usually starves out. The green algae is just much better usually at consuming the nutrients in the tank than diatoms are, in my experience. Almost every single time I've cycled a saltwater tank, it's gone exactly that way. Beautiful. Diatoms, green algae, then I put stuff in. So there you go. And just algae cleanup crew, my favorite cleanup crew members would be, I'm going to say Trochus snails. I think banded Trochus snails are my personal all-time favorite snail. They can right themselves. They are king when it comes to eating different types of algae. They do a great job of cleaning up things like hair algae. And I'm also a fan of cucumbers, although if they die, it can be a bad day for the tank. But I do really like pink belly or tiger tail cucumbers, very much for cleaning up the sand. You can also, however, use things like Nazaria snails, which do a pretty good job of turning over the sand bed and cleaning up any extra food.
Cool. He follows up with everything has gone up already. The ammonia is back down to 0.
Perfect. You should have green algae very soon. As soon as you start seeing that green algae appear, the diatom should start dying back, and then throw in a cleanup crew.
Cool. Next up, how big do plecos get?
Depends on the species. Really, really big or not big at all.
Are there certain plecos that are like the most popular? Like the common aquarium pleco gets like 2 feet long. 2 feet.
Massive fish. There's lots of small plecos. Bushy nose stay small. Rubber nose plecos stay small. Lots of the ornamental plecos stay pretty small, like leopard frog plecos or zebra plecos. Very expensive, very pretty. A little bit fragile. Fragile.
I'm the only one that understood.
I know. I gotta tone that back. But yeah, so there are gigantic plecos. There's one, what is it, the Panac? Whoa, I can't remember. Blue rhino pleco. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it gets absolutely gigantic. Like the biggest pleco ever. It's like bigger than a football. It's crazy in girth. It's just huge.
That is crazy.
And they've got like these crazy barbs that looks like a beard on their face. It's amazing. Cool. Red dragons get huge. There's lots of really big plecos. So yeah, it's a range.
Next question, not really aquatics related, more big owls related.
Sure.
Are you going to have a giveaway sometime? And if someone in another country wins, do you ship out for free then? Or do the winner in that case pay the shipment? So Madeline, listen. We are going to be doing giveaways and stuff in the future. Shipping out of the country, like out of the US or Canada, I don't think we generally do that ever.
It's tough.
It's really tough, especially depending on what the giveaway was, like what we're actually, what you order, what we give away. So I can't say it's impossible, especially if you said if the winner pays the shipment. Maybe, I mean, we wouldn't want you to have to, but generally we don't ship outside of the continental.
Not usually. I think the other issue is, depending on where you are and where you're from, there are different commissions that you have to be in line with in order to run contests. So, for instance, like, I know a lot of contests that get run exclude Quebec in Canada because they have different rules for things like charities or auctions or raffles or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it all depends. But
with that said, maybe we've talked about this idea for it's not a product giveaway, but it's something else exciting. And you said you'd be on board.
Yeah.
So maybe we're like, I was thinking maybe even next week. You know, we're having this conversation in front of all of you. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking maybe next week, if you're down, we can give away this, like, you know, like at least have a winner, and then in the new year we fulfill that.
Yeah.
So I'm
down for that.
What we were talking about as a potential giveaway that isn't a product or anything, but we thought maybe we give away like a series of one-on-one personal, like Skype calls or something with Thomas, so you can speak with him face-to-face, show him your tank. He can give you like real personal one-on-one real-time advice and tips and tricks. You know, like have like a 20-minute call or something where you guys talk shop, talk tanks.
Super, I was going to say unprofessional. No, just super relaxed.
Super casual.
Yeah, thank you. That's the word, not unprofessional.
It might get unprofessional. You know, like
you never know.
You never know with it. But we thought that might be a really cool giveaway to do. That isn't a product, but it is one-on-one time with this aquatics expert to talk about your tanks, your fish, get all that advice. So let us know if you guys think that would be cool. And maybe next week it's our final stream next week before the holidays.
Woo!
So maybe for that we will maybe we'll
give that away. Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, there is that coming, and then in the new year we will be doing more proper giveaways of products and whatnot, as well as we have different builds going and stuff. So yeah, that's something upcoming to look forward to. Next up,
I just saw a question. Yow Girl, I don't know in the channel.
Yeah, no, we work for. So Big Owls is an aquarium company operating out of, like, they have stores in Canada and a website in Canada, and then we have BigOwlsPets.com in the US. For online aquarium supply shopping. So it's a general company, and they started a YouTube channel almost 4 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
4 years that we've been at this.
I've been working for them since I was 16 years old. That's more than 15 years ago.
Right, yeah, and then 4 years ago they decided they wanted to start a YouTube channel, which is a very progressive idea. I was really I didn't work for the company. They brought me in.
Yep.
Brought me into the office and said, "This is the guy you're going to do videos with." And at the time, his beard was gigantic and his hair was super long, like a mountain man. I went, "All right, let's do it." And so for 4 years, we've been doing videos for Big Owls, and Thomas has been sort of the on-camera representation of that. He's been our expert and our go-to guy for anything aquatics. So he doesn't own the channel, but he is, you know, in many ways the lifeblood of the channel. So yeah, that's that. Let's find a new question. Does a saltwater quarantine tank have to cycle? No substrate, just a filter and heater.
If you use a filter on it that already has cycled biomedia in it, then no. But if it doesn't, then yes. Because the fish that you're going to keep in there, you still have to feed. You're still going to be allowing to respirate and breathe and poop and everything in that tank, just like it was an aquarium all of its own. And therefore, there's going to be ammonia being produced, and therefore you need to break it down to nitrate. You still have to do water changes on quarantine tanks. You still have to treat them as an aquarium. It's just separate of your display tank, and usually really dulled down in the decoration department. Usually you just, you know, put some PVC elbows or something in there, something to break up the open space in the tank so the fish has a place to feel comfortable and to hide. But beyond that, yeah, you absolutely have to make sure it's cycled or has biomedia to support that tank that is already cycled, which is what I often do. So usually those of us with reef tanks out there will have enough space somewhere in the filter or in the sump or whatever to grab like a bag of biomedia, whatever kind that it is, enough to, you know, do a 10-gallon tank or 20-gallon tank and just keep it in there. And if you ever do need to set up quarantine because you're going to buy new fish or you got a sick fish that you need to treat, you can just fill it with water from your main display, which you can then top up with new salt water, and then take that media and throw it into the filter and turn everything on, and that tank's essentially cycled as is. Don't usually put substrate in them just because it's just one extra thing to keep clean. And if you're treating for parasites or something like that, you want to be able to see the poop easily on the bottom of the tank so you can assess the situation, see if it's getting better or worse or whatever. So yeah.
Awesome. Someone says they should change the shark in our logo to Thomas.
Somebody draw me as a caricature, and we'll make it happen at least. Just in jest.
Yes.
We'll throw it up there every once in a while.
If someone can make that, you know, Photoshop it or draw it or whatever, we'll give away like one of these chats with Thomas. So that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the like the we'll
make a T-shirt.
Yes. Yeah. That would be incredible.
And then I'll wear myself. Oh, you'll wear me and I'll wear you.
Yes. All right.
All right. Done.
That's a deal. Love the idea. Okay. Next up, how do you deal with biofilm on planted tanks?
Biofilm on the glass?
They don't specify.
Usually biofilm's gonna end up on everything all the time, no matter what you do. For a lot of the coverage you get of biofilm on stuff, it's really translucent for the most part. It's when it starts mixing with algae and you start getting a thick biofilm and algae together on things that it becomes really unsightly. In general, I scrape my glass daily. Like if you check out the video that Brian posted at the beginning of the live stream here that we just released, it was the last video we put out. It's a top 10 good aquarium habits.
Just linked it now. Boop.
I often just do my glass daily, even though I can see straight through it. It doesn't look like there's anything on it, but it takes 10 seconds just to kind of go over the whole tank. And that prevents a buildup of biofilm on the glass or buildup of algae so that it doesn't get to the point where you have to get a scraper and really hack at it to get it off. So that's one way to deal with it. If you're talking about on like plant leaves and stuff, that's harder. That, for me, that comes down to making sure that everything's in harmony in a planted aquarium so that your plants are out competing algae in the tank. They're photosynthesizing and using all of the nutrients in the system before algae can really access them. That's the key to kind of keeping plants really pretty looking. And also having cleanup crew that will help keep the leaves clean. Shrimp work really well for that. All kinds of small ornamental shrimp like crystal shrimp or sakura shrimp. There's all kinds of different names. Or autosynclus catfish can do a great job. Just keep in mind you have to also make sure they're nutritionally balanced. They can't just eat nothing but algae. They usually need something else in their diet to stay healthy and live long term. But yeah, biofilm on like rocks and stuff, a brush will take it off if it starts to get out of hand. But what I like to do is take a power head during maintenance. So before I do a water change, and I'll actually blow everything in the tank, the rocks, the plants, everything, just gently with the power head to get everything up into the water column. And at that point, when you do your water change, you're going to be pulling out most of that debris that's floating in the water. And whatever doesn't get pulled out will be suspended, and your filter should be able to pull it out once you got everything plugged in and running again. So that's generally how I deal with biofilm. It's mostly preventative, but if it's there, it's just a matter of some elbow grease.
Awesome. And I've lost my question. No, I didn't. Here it is. Is 4 inches of substrate equal complete too deep for a 75-gallon? There are some live plants in it.
No. There isn't really. If you're dealing with a live plant, like a live planted tank with live plants, there's no real too much substrate point, really. Because it really depends on the plants you're keeping and how big they're going to get. Because depending on how large the plant's going to get, the root system will, in many cases, mirror the, it will also marry stuff. This is lovely roots. It will mirror the height of the plant. So a very tall plant, like a tree, for instance, if you're looking at a tree, its roots are usually in the ground as wide and as deep as the canopy. And for sword plants and stuff like that, the very same can be true. Like you could have a tall ocelot sword or whatever it is sticking way out of the tank. And if it's a 2-foot sword, it's going to want to go 2 feet deep with roots. Not saying you have to provide 2 feet of substrate, but if you have more than less, the plant will be more stable. It'll grow better. It'll be healthier. So 4 inches is not too much. I think even in my Live Planet video that we did, the build series for the low-tech tank, I have like 6 inches at the back of the tank and maybe just over 2 or 3 inches in the front, or close to 4. I can't remember. No, it's not quite 4. No. I think it's like 2 inches in the front and up to 6 inches in the back, sloping. So yeah, 4 inches is not too much. It could be too little. Depends on what you're keeping.
I've heard people saying that elegance corals are not ideal long-term in a tank. Why is that? And can elegance coral and torch corals go in the same tank?
Elegance are a LPS coral, and so are torches. And yes, they can go in the same tank. I wouldn't let them touch each other, though. They probably wouldn't get along. Elegance corals, I think, are often thought of as not beginner corals. And man, I'm trying to remember how this went. Back in the day, they used to collect elegance corals from very shallow water. And they used to be able to handle very high light because they were collected from shallow water. But now they're collected, if I'm not mistaken, from deeper and deeper water. And they actually just don't deal with high light output as well as their shallow water cousins did before they were removed from the wild. So I would say in general, it's easy to overlight an elegance, which isn't great for them. I would also say that for an LPS, they do like to get fed, so you'd have to go out of your way to keep them fed using coral foods. I mean, they're not too picky. They do pretty decent on even flake food. If it gets down to them, I've seen them consume it. And ultimately, you have to make sure you have good calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium levels in the tank. Because it is an LPS, it's going to absolutely 100% need those elements in proper concentration in the water in order to maintain its current skeleton and also grow, get any larger. But as long as you do a little bit of research first, figure out exactly where the elegance you're looking at is coming from and what kind of parameters you're going to need for an elegance in terms of light and all that. If you can provide that, I don't see a reason as to why you shouldn't be able to keep an elegance.
Awesome. Okay, so we are at the halfway mark.
Woo!
Normally we would do what did Brian learn this week.
But Brian learned nothing.
I learned nothing this week. I made it a goal this week to learn nothing new.
Yeah.
So I didn't. Instead, you know, we got a comment on our new video.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So the comment is, watched a bunch of your videos and there was something about you and just figured out that your right eye blinks slightly faster than the left. That's probably why you wear an earring in the opposite ear to visually compensate. Very smart. So I thought, is that true? Like, does it, maybe he noticed that. Does his eyes blink? I don't know. And then you commented back with something about Harry Potter or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I basically said like the all-time most delayed blink that I've ever seen is Daniel Radcliffe's version of Harry Potter, who when he blinks looking at something, like one eye clearly closes first, like an owl. It's like he's like...
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
That is weird. Well, that's what I thought. I also commented saying, now I'm going to have to go through and go frame by frame and see.
Did it? Oh, did you?
I put together something. I haven't checked. I put something together for us to analyze together now.
Okay.
All right. So this is footage from our latest video. We're going to see. We're going to either bust this, or we're going to confirm it.
Okay.
With this, all right?
Confirmed or denied.
All right. So let's have a look here. Now here you go. Oh. You blink. That was pretty on point. There was really no big difference I saw in this one.
This is really weird to watch.
Yeah, we get to see all the nuances of his movement, so it's really great. So there's nothing there. I think we've got a few here. Oh, here's another one. Let's see. Eyebrow goes up, and then... But did they blink at the same time? He didn't quite do that.
You know what? I saw one of them closed more than the other.
Yeah. There was a hint of it there.
I think I just saw it.
they might actually be onto something. The fact that they caught that in real time is pretty impressive.
Hey, you know, whatever. I've never noticed that. I never would have noticed that.
Of course not. All right, well, that's cool.
That's
pretty on point too, man.
I'm so glad I got to overanalyze my face making these weird
I just wanted to see if
motions.
this is true or not. I literally had to go through frame by frame.
What am I doing?
That's you, man. Oh, there it is. That one is closed.
Oh, man.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Well,
confirmed.
That said, that is confirmed. All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, we got that out of the way. That was what I wanted to go through today, just to double check this. And it was fun watching you in slow motion anyway. So
maybe for you.
that was pretty fun for me.
Okay.
Now we got an idea of Thomas's, like I said, the little nuances of all this crazy stuff. We got to see a slow mo and see how he does it. Okay, next let's get back to questions now that silliness is over with.
Sounds good.
Recently bought a green killing machine for my cloudy water. Was wondering if there is any negative effects it can cause to my tank. Is it safe for freshwater stingrays?
What are you referring to? Just like a UV sterilizer, or we have to look up green killing machine just to make sure I know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Green killing machine.
Sounds pretty crazy.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, UV sterilizer. Internal? Cool. So if your cloudy water is caused by algae, suspended algae, so it's green tinted, it should get rid of that no problem. Bacterial blooms, it can work on, kinda, but I don't necessarily treat cloudy water from a bacterial bloom with anything, because the only real treatment long term is for the tank to cycle properly. That's what's going to get rid of that. So it should work as long as it's green water. Shouldn't be a problem at all. And is it going to hurt anything in the tank or the stingrays? Absolutely not. Not unless you pulled the cover off and exposed them to the painy, damagey UV rays. But yeah, it's not going to hurt anything else. If it was like a marine system full of corals and microfauna like zooplankton and phytoplankton, then yeah, it's going to wipe out most of that stuff or at least damage it in some way, shape, or form. But no, it shouldn't hurt anything in the tank. Your stingrays should probably be happy that they're not going to have green water anymore. And also, if it's strong enough, which it might not be, it could also sterilize. But if it's just a clarifier, then just the green stuff is going to go.
Awesome. Don't forget to hit that like button, everybody, please. It'll help us out. We still have half of the stream left to go. Hello, my 55-gallon tank's nitrate levels are crazy high.
Yikes.
I have live plants in it, but no tank light. But the nitrate levels keep rising. Any suggestions?
No tank light? Is it by the window? How do the plants photosynthesize? Maybe if you put a light, they would do a better job at it and suck out some of those nitrates. Anytime you've got like killer high nitrates or ammonia and stuff in the tank and you can't seem to get rid of it no matter how many water changes you do or so on and so forth, look at your water source. So check your tap water, test it. Maybe you have nitrates in your tap water. Wouldn't be the first time. That said, also double check your feeding habits. How often are you feeding? Is it more than you need to? Are you putting more food in than the fish are actually consuming? Is the tank way overstocked? Plus you're feeding heavily, which means tons of fish poop, which is then equating to lots of nitrates and stuff in the water. So you kind of got to pick apart the situation and see where you may be getting nitrates from. They don't just like magically appear, so they've got to come from somewhere, and you can usually pull it out of what your feeding habits are like or source water and stuff like that. So have a look. If you haven't done like a really good gravel cleaning or anything lately or clean the filter, obviously double check that. Make sure there's no mulm buildup, that leftover food or debris that's been in the tank for a long time. Get rid of all of it and see where you stand.
Cool. Will a Cheeto plant die? Is it supposed to be Cheeto or Cheeto? Is it supposed to be Cheeto?
Where? Kaito.
Well, it says Cheeto.
Haha! See?
Yeah, got me.
It's not just me.
No, it's me too. Okay, will a Kaito plant die if you put it inside an empty slot of the back flow of an aquarium tank, like a Fluval 13.5?
If it has light, it should be just fine, but you have to expect that Kaito... So, okay, if you think of Kaito as like a ball of spaghetti, because that's kind of how it grows, it doesn't adhere to anything or attach to things. It really kind of just grows in and amongst itself like a giant Brillo pad. If you have a light on one side of it, The light on the other side, it's not going to penetrate through the Kaito very effectively. So you're going to have one side of the Kaito that's going to start dying off and dying back because it's not receiving light. So that said, if it's in the back chamber and it can't be lit very brightly from the back of the tank, if there's a black film on it or something and you don't want to pull that off where the Kaito is, and you're top lighting it, then you'll want to harvest it often. So that way you're not getting Kaito die off on the bottom all the time. You can either pull it out and flip it over every once in a while, like maybe once or twice a week, or you can just, as soon as it starts growing enough depth that it's not getting light on the bottom, pull it out, tear it in half and throw it back in. It doesn't take a lot of Kaito, especially with the smaller tank, to keep things going. So in an all-in-one, that could be fine, but you have to light it. You want to make sure it's getting enough light to photosynthesize effectively. Otherwise, it's not going to be doing a really good job of nutrient export. How quickly you can grow Kaito is a direct relation with how much nutrients it's going to pull out of the tank for you, because its growth is what's pulling out the nutrients. So the more often you have to harvest Kaito, and the faster it grows, the better it is for the system. Yeah, so I've answered your question and given some extra information.
Awesome. Bonus. I've had a hard time adding angelfish to my tank. They die a day or two after adding. Other fish seem to do just fine. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. How are you adding them? Question mark?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Some fish benefit from a slower process of being added to the aquarium. Double check the values in the water. So test the water that the fish are coming from and compare it to your water. Maybe you have like a vastly different pH level and they're going into pH shock. Maybe they're not temperature acclimating. You're not giving enough time for temperature acclimation to happen and they're going through temperature shock. You know, it could be a whole bunch of things, but I feel your pain. Because that really, it sucks to lose fish, and it really sucks when you're trying to bring new fish into your system and you're just not having any luck with them doing well. The other thing is, are you getting fish from the same place every time? Is it, you know, what I would even do if they'll let you, not saying that the fish store is the issue, but just to double check that you're not getting fish from a fresh shipment and they're just not settled in yet, and whatever losses are going to happen from being shipped haven't happened yet. You know, just see if your store will hold the fish you want for you for a few days. Make sure that they're eating, ask to watch them feed, make sure they're in good shape and good health before you even take them home, and bring some of your water to the store with you when you go. See if they'll test your water for you and compare it just to make sure that everything's going to be copacetic, and then try again. If you want to get a little bit more involved and we can kind of walk you through, get some more information from you and try to walk you through the process of figuring out why they're not surviving, reach out to our support team.
Yeah.
We'll drop the link down there for you. But they can definitely help also determine what it is that's causing these angels to not thrive. We can try to drill down to it further for you.
Cool. Will plants control nitrate, and what plants would you recommend?
Yeah, they can definitely help with nitrate control, along with phosphate and a whole bunch of other stuff. I would recommend the easiest plant that's going to probably grow the fastest in a low light setting is Java moss. You can even just have like a ball of Java moss. But Java moss grows fast. It absorbs nutrients pretty well. The one thing I will say is the more Java moss you have, the more careful you have to be with it becoming saturated with dirt and debris and mulch, because it will trap stuff. So every once in a while during a water change, you just want to kind of gather it up and kind of brush it off, or give it a squeeze if it's just a big ball of it, and you'll see junk fly out of it and you suck that out of the water. Java fern is also really great. Anubias grows very slowly, so I don't usually recommend it for nutrient export because I don't think it does an amazing job. Usually how fast something grows is an indicator of how quickly it's using nutrients. I find Java moss grows pretty fast. Java fern grows pretty quick. There are other ones out there. Duckweed grows crazy fast, but it's a surface plant and gets out of hand very quickly and is often considered a pest. Oh, vowels. Vowels work really, really well. Jungle vowels, great option. They grow fast, they grow tall, they are not finicky, they work well in low light, and they will suck up nutrients. Ha-ha!
Nicely done.
Next.
Any thoughts on how to keep the plastic trim of my aquarium free of calcium buildup?
Yikes. It's tough. Getting
is
lime
is
scale.
That just one of those things that you're gonna deal with?
Yeah, so lime scale on the trim is very common. The best way to prevent it is to not allow water to sit on it. So if you see water getting up there, the tough part is it's usually from evaporation. So you have the lid and it's sitting on the tank and it's catching all the condensation and then it's falling on places. And usually when you condense water, you don't get all the elements coming with it. You don't have everything coming up with it. However, it can still happen. So honestly, your best bet is just to wipe it down as often as possible to prevent it from actually, evaporating on the trim and then leaving that deposit behind. If it is there, though, you can use a small amount of vinegar and some paper towel and let it sit on there with paper towel and vinegar, and that'll help get rid of it. You just got to be super careful you're not pouring vinegar into the tank. Generally, I just leave it unless it's on the outside trim that I actually have to look at. You know what I mean? If it's on the very top or the outside of the trim, I'll deal with it. If it's on the inside, I usually don't, unless I'm breaking the tank down completely to clean everything, which you almost never do unless you're shutting the tank down. So, yeah.
So I messaged the other day regarding the Java fern rot. Problem was manganese deficiency.
Yikes.
I used Flourish. Okay. There goes my pen. Now Marine Kent. Manganese on both are same. So what do I do?
I used Flourish. Now Marine Kent.
Manganese on both are same. So what do I do? I guess the manganese hasn't gone away at all. Hasn't been affected.
So manganese deficiency. Are you testing for manganese?
Right.
Is there... I don't know if there's a manganese test kit or if it would register on a magnesium test kit. Usually if you cannot test for it, you'll never know where it truly is, what the range is. So all you can do is continue to try and add it until you see an improvement if you're certain manganese deficiency is what's causing the issue in the plant. But I would look to see if there's a test kit for manganese specifically, or if a standard magnesium test kit will register manganese, which I'm not confident of, but it's possible. And yeah, that's the only way you can really figure out. And if you're talking about like between those two products, which one's best, I would stick with Flourish personally, but there are other options from other. I really like Seachem products. I've used them for years and years, and they've always done me solid. Kent is also great, but if it's marine specific and you're trying to use it in freshwater, I don't know if it is the product is different in any way, shape, or form in a way that would be detrimental to freshwater. I wouldn't think so, but I wouldn't want to make the assumption. Okay,
it says here, I guess he sent a photo in to maybe support, and he said they told him it was manganese deficiency based on the picture.
Okay. But testing is, testing is the only way to know for sure where your manganese is at. Because if you're like dramatically low and you're trying to add to get it back up, not only is the plant going to be taking that manganese because it's deficient and it's trying to uptake whatever's in the water, that's going to affect how much you're going to have to put in to also get it up to the level it should be at generally. So not only are you trying to bring it up, but you have something that's also taking it away at the same time, which can complicate the whole process.
Okie dokie. We have about 13-15 minutes left of the stream, guys. We're going in order here of these questions. Okay. If you have like a really important question you need answered, if you guys wanted to use the super chat feature, obviously do that. We appreciate the extra support, and we will get to your question right away if you do that. Otherwise, we are going in order. We'll try now to get to as many as we can. We'll try a lightning.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll do our best. He'll be as detailed as he has to be, but we'll do our best. How many pairs can be added to a 66-gallon cichlid tank?
How many pairs? That's really going to depend on what cichlids you're keeping. If we're talking Africans, that's still going to depend on the size of the Africans. It's almost impossible for me to answer that without more information. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. This is a reptile question. Do your best. I want a gecko, but I'm terrified of insects. Do they need to have live food, or can I give them a substitute?
In my opinion, it's going to be very difficult to get any gecko to take food that is not live. A lot of the time they're visual hunters, so unless you're using something that is going to move, they may not be attracted to it. It can be tough. Not impossible, definitely hard. So I wouldn't recommend it. If you don't like insects, stay away from any reptile that's going to require insects. A really good alternative, although it's nothing like a gecko, is a Pac-Man frog, because they will very often eat anything off of tongs. So you can just kind of dangle it in front of their face and they'll go for it. And they're cute as a button. Anyways, yeah.
Cool. Will the live chat stay on Wednesdays or is it moving to Saturdays? In the new year, we're going to move it to Saturdays.
Yes.
Saturday mornings around 11 Eastern Standard Time, I think is what we talked about.
Yep.
So it will be moving to Saturdays in the new year, but today and then next week will be Wednesdays, and then that's it till the new year. We'll keep you guys posted on that on our community tab. Is there anything you guys want to know from us, the fans? A ton. We're going to keep answering questions now, but that's a very cool thing. Idea, and we will.
I'm glad you asked that. The Nutty Mechanic, high five to you.
Yeah.
For even asking that question.
Yes, we definitely do want to know a lot. I love the idea of like, how did you get into the hobby? What's your story for how you kind of fell into and started loving the hobby? But we'll get into that maybe in a future Q&A or a future stream.
In general, though, we really like to know what kind of videos you guys want to see.
Yeah, generally for us that helps us a lot. You know, any suggestions you guys can send us will help us in our
100%
decision making. Okay, let's see. Just a side note, I've heard that bettas can be aggressive towards shrimp, but my betta is afraid of my Amano shrimp.
Awesome.
Do you need to change the filter biological media?
Some people like to change it periodically. I almost never do unless it starts breaking down, in which case I'll generally change half of it. So I'll keep half and then put new media in as well and let the old half colonize the new half, and you have to compensate for that with feeding and water changes because your biological filter will be effectively half as strong until the other half colonizes. So it can be a complicated process. The short answer is no, not really. Long answer is yes if the biomedia is compromised.
How do I stop algae from growing so quickly in my tank?
Get rid of the nutrients and or light. So if you have your light on, one of the most effective ways for just getting rid of algae is limiting the amount of light it has. A lot of people will have their tank on when they leave for work in the morning and turn it off when they go to bed, but that could be a 12-hour light cycle, which is way more than you need. You only really need the light on when you're there to enjoy the fish, unless you have live plants or something. The fish are going to be fine with ambient room light, so what I generally recommend is throw it on a timer for 6 hours a day. For the 6 hours you're most likely to be home to enjoy it. Yeah.
How do you fix an old tank with a lower pH of 6.0?
Assuming that that's a lower pH due to the biological processes happening in the tank and not your tap water having a low pH, you could do a thorough cleaning of the tank, get rid of any mulm or buildup that's in the filter, in the gravel, within ornaments, all that stuff, like a nice deep cleaning of those things. And then just water changes. You know, step up your water change regimen and it'll slowly start to bring that pH back up to whatever your tap water's at. Unless you have something like peat or tannin, something putting tannins in the water that could be potentially lowering the pH as well. But that's usually how I go about it.
Okay, I have a lighting... sorry, actually someone asked, when will your next Reacts video be released?
Very soon.
Hopefully next week. We're shooting them tomorrow. Hopefully the next one will be next week. Okay, I have a lighting question. I have a 6-foot, 210-gallon. I have two 72-inch beams work full spec and a 48 in Phoenix planted plus 20... I don't know what all this means. And a 48 in Phoenix planted plus 24/7. Is that load of medium light or would that be considered high light?
I can't say, because I don't have a par meter in your aquarium to even measure it. And I don't know off the top of my head what those fixtures par ratings are. So I apologize, but I can't. I can't do it. I don't have the power. If you start approaching 150 par, you're definitely on the high end. If you're under 40 par or somewhere around 40 par, that's considered like low light or like low tech light. So I would say somewhere around probably 60, 70 par, that range is probably medium light, medium to high, somewhere like that. So yeah, unless you test it with a par meter, I really can't say. I'm not sure. Cool. I'm sorry.
How old do you have to be hired by Big Al's retail location, and any tips? I'm looking into the sales associate part-time position. Thank you.
That's really cool.
That is really cool. As far as the age...
16. Whatever 16, the age of legal
yeah,
working is in
whatever is in child labor. Yeah. But tips, be super enthusiastic about it. Ask lots of questions. Be willing to learn a ton. Those are my only tips, really.
Be strong in personality and in confidence. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, general job finding tips. The more you're willing to learn, I mean, if you're just starting in the hobby or you're not that experienced, you have to be willing to admit that you need to learn a lot. But
if you have the passion and the drive and aquatics really resonates with you, there's a good chance that you'd be at the forefront of getting hired.
Yeah. Good luck, and listen, hopefully we see you around sometime.
Yeah.
Is it common for a baby betta to keep fear stripes on when going through color changes / maturing?
Young betta with stress barring. You know what? It depends, because I've actually seen certain fish that would almost never drop stress barring that did just fine. So I don't know. I don't really know. Stress barring is usually a sign of stress, but if there is nothing, like if you're positive there's nothing that should be stressing out the fish other than maybe your presence, making them nervous, I would say you could try adding some more objects to the aquarium to make them feel like they are more concealed. Sometimes that nervousness and stress barring is just coming from the fish feeling too exposed. So giving them more to hide behind, more to lay on, some live plants, or even plastic plants or a piece of driftwood or whatever could help mitigate that stress barring.
Awesome. Should hiding places remain the same always for African cichlids? Because while cleaning the tank, the placements of stones might change. Would it affect the fish's nature?
Yeah, in general, actually, a lot of people will change up the look of their tank on a fairly regular basis to help mitigate aggression between certain fish, because every time you disrupt the layout of the aquarium, you're disrupting their territories. They no longer have the same places. They're very visual. They know where they belong. They, they're gonna seek out X nook in the rock that they've claimed as their own. But if you change everything, it's a smorgasbord of everybody trying to figure out where they belong again. So it can both be a good thing and a bad thing. For instance, if you take it all apart and clean it all up and everything was harmonious, you put it all back, and that could instigate fighting because the fish are trying to figure out who's going to be where now. So it can help, it can hinder, it depends on your situation. In general, though, if things are going well with the scape you've got, try not to mess with it too much.
How do I keep my red freshwater aquarium plants red?
Usually red plants really, really like highlight. That blushing you get on the leaves is because of highlight. In a lot of cases, it's kind of like sunscreen, right? It changes the amount of light that plant's receiving, and as they get so if something's red, right, like my mug, it's going to reflect red light. So the red wavelengths are hitting that thing and bouncing off, which is why it appears red to our eyeball. So a plant that is green is going to be absorbing everything but green light, which is what's bouncing off into your face. But if a plant goes red, it's usually because it's trying to block out red light or change the amount of light that it's receiving. So yeah, highlight is usually what does it. The catch is you have to have high nutrients and usually higher levels of CO2 for that plant to still be able to photosynthesize effectively with all that high light. Otherwise, you're going to start getting algae buildup. So the algae can use everything all the time effectively.
What plants do you recommend for mollies?
Oh, well, mollies are pretty good in general with most things, but if you're worried about them hurting the plants, anything with a rigid leaf is really good. Anubias are fantastic. I've also done with mollies, I've done valves with mollies, I've done Ludwigia with mollies. I haven't really had a whole lot of trouble with mollies, but if you've got some that are really tearing apart plants, I would look at things like Anubias that have a nice rigid leaf that's not going to get damaged.
Cool. My giant gourami wouldn't give a chance for the tank mates to eat their food. He's so aggressive. Is there anything I can do?
There's a couple things you can try. So you can feed in 2 spots in the tank simultaneously. One way to do that is feed surface or floating foods for the gourami, because he's going to be up there doing his thing, his or her thing. I'm making assumptions. Your gourami's going to be up there doing their thing, eating that food, and you can use something like a tube to put some sinking pellets or a slow sinking food into the water column further down so that your other fish on the opposite end of the tank are more likely to be able to get some food before that gourami goes and tears everything apart. So sometimes it's just a complicated juggling, juggling of feeding one fish in one corner of the tank and then feeding the other fish in the other corner of the tank. If it's just not working, no matter what you do, separation is the only other option that I can think of. Just either picking the gourami or picking your other fish.
Cool. We'll do one more. Then, unfortunately, we got to run, guys. But we'll do one more.
Okay.
New to the aquarium world, my nitrite Nitrate level is high, NO2 level is high. Did a 95% water change and the nitrite is still high. Will this cause any harm to my friends, my fish? And what can I do to bring back the levels?
Test your water. Make sure that your tap water, your source water, wherever you're getting your water from, make sure it doesn't have nitrate in it so that you're not putting nitrate back in the tank. Do a nice good cleaning of the gravel. It's funny that this has been like a theme today.
Yeah.
Cleaning of the gravel, making sure there's no mulm or buildup in the ornaments or the rocks or the gravel or the filter or whatever. Yeah, you got to do your best to make sure there's no overfeeding, so no extra food going in all kinds of places that it shouldn't be going rather than the fish's mouth, and not overfeeding the fish so that they're just creating way more waste than is actually necessary. And then just keep up with those water changes and make sure, like, as long as your source water is good, it should start coming down. Now, here's the thing. I can't say whether or not it's going to hurt your fish because you didn't give me a value for where your nitrates are, so I'm not quite sure how bad it is. Typically, I say once it starts getting over 60, I consider 60 high. Some people consider 80 high. Some people think 100's high. I think anything over 60 is getting dangerous, in my opinion. So, and there are fish that will start reacting to nitrates once they start hitting 40. So yeah, if you're already up at around 60, you want to drop it. You want to get it down. My goal is usually 20 on a cichlid tank or an African cichlid tank. Balancing 40 is not the worst. They can handle it, and sometimes it's just tough, especially because they're usually densely populated aquariums. And if you can't for the life of you get it down no matter what you do, you have to consider that maybe the tank's overstocked, and you might have to decide who's staying and who's going.
Tough choice.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a direction to go in.
Cool. Everyone, thank you all so much for joining us for another edition of this Q&A. Just a reminder that next Wednesday's Q&A is a go, but it's the last Wednesday Q&A we're going to have for the rest of the year.
Yep.
That's it. Next week is the last one before all the holidays, and we're not going to have a stream over the holidays.
Not again till the new year.
Yeah, I mean, we might do, I'm going to be at head office a lot around the holidays, so we might do some general quick streams for you guys. I think I'm going to do maybe a live stream tour of one of our locations.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, but as far as these Q&As, these are next week is the last one for the year.
Yep.
And then the second week of January, I believe, is when we're going to start doing them Saturdays, Saturday mornings at 11 Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully we can have more people join in with us, which would be awesome. Thank you guys for joining us, even if you're at work or at school.
Yeah, thank you, especially if you're at work or at school. That's commitment.
That is commitment, and we dig it. We appreciate that. It's a great way to support us by joining us on these streams. Again, we don't get to everyone's questions. There are a ton of questions, but you can always leave your questions in the comments on our videos, and we do our best to get back to them on there. You can find us on Facebook. Ask your questions on our Facebook page, and again, our team of aquatics experts are there to help you out and to give you advice there as well. Where else can you ask questions? We have Instagram, not the greatest place to ask questions, but most of Facebook's pretty much the best one after this. And join us every week and be the first one here. Get your questions in as soon as you can, and then there's obviously a much higher chance of us getting to it.
And also, I just want to say thank you to all of the people who join us and help answer other people's questions as well. Joey Jones Aquatics, I'm watching you do it right now. Thank you so much. I really love the fact that we've kind of got a community of people chatting together.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome having you guys here, talking to each other, giving each other advice. That is heartwarming, gives us the warm and fuzzies. So thank you guys so much for that. I guess with that said, I think that's all the spiel we have. What's the Facebook name? On Facebook, we're called Big Al's Online. I'll link it for you guys now, just in case you need it. I'll send you the link. So again, that's a good one. We do have a team at the office that manages the page, and they'll do their best to help you out, just like we do our best to help you out here. Of course, my browser is being super slow getting you guys the link, but I will link it for you.
Grease lightning.
Yeah, oh my lord, this is crazy. Anyway, again, thank you guys so much. And I think next week we'll try something really cool, giving away the
thing?
Yeah, the thing that we had talked about before. Your a little one-on-one session with Thomas over Skype to talk shop, talk tanks.
Talk whatever you want.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, even if it's not about tanks, that's cool too.
Yeah, you talk about,
whatever you guys want to chat about. I mean, I think it's great, especially for those of you who have more questions or have a specific problem, or want an opinion on something with your tank that might take a little bit more talking about or explaining and stuff. I think it could be a lot of fun and a great tool for whoever might need it. So.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's what we're gonna maybe give the first one away next week, and then in the new year we'll fulfill that with Thomas actually talking to you guys. So anyway, thanks again, guys. It's been a lot of fun, and as always,
keep on tanking.